Well, we're joined in the studio now by Layla Moran, the Liberal Democrat MP for Oxford West and Abingdon. And we had you in the studio when, after October the 7th, and you had family members who were stuck in Gaza. And then we spoke to you again when family members got out of Gaza. We have to talk to you again today in light of what Donald Trump has said overnight about the US taking over Gaza and the resettlement of Gazans to, well, we don't know where exactly. What was your reaction when you heard it?
I saw it last night, and actually my very first reaction was, oh God, what the hell has he said? And then I thought, do you know what? I'm going to try and go to sleep and see if it's still the same in the morning. Because sometimes he does make these comments, right? He sort of, and it did seem to be sort of midstream of consciousness, and, you know, he's going to, the Gazan Riviera and whatever. And then I woke up this morning and it was still there. And more besides. I mean, I think beyond just what he said about Gaza, and he loves it. It's a great place. You know, Palestinians like it too. But you know, notwithstanding his wanting to build a golf course there, he also went on to say that their position on sovereignty in the West Bank is yet to be decided. And actually, of the things he said in the last 24 hours, that to me is the most troubling thing, because sovereignty in the West Bank is not to be decided. The West Bank and Gaza are occupied Palestinian territories. They belong to Palestine as part of one day a two-state solution. And that is the American president basically giving up on a two-state solution. That's huge. That's enormous. And that has real consequences for anyone who cares about Palestine, let alone the Palestinians themselves.
If you want to be generous, Layla, you'd say he's already given up on a two-state solution. And frankly, there has been no movement on a two-state solution for decades. So he's pointing out the bleeding obvious in the hope, presumably, of getting something to happen, something to change.
It's interesting you say that. So I was talking to some of my Palestinian friends, as you would, this morning, who said the same thing. You know, if many Palestinians for a long time have said, well, the international community will often talk about a two-state solution. I think when I spoke to you, John, we'd spoken about it, and you pointed out, you know, why do you keep trying to talk about this? This isn't going to happen. To which the response is always, well, what's the alternative? And Trump today or yesterday has presented the alternative. It's ethnic cleansing and it's forcible transfer. And actually, it's the first time anyone said the quiet bit out loud. Because if you don't believe in a two-state solution, then that is what you're talking about. You're talking about war crimes, and you're talking about something that's fully against international law, and that's the direction of travel that he wants to take. Now, the question is, what does the international community do? And what my friend said, well, is if this is what it's going to take for Jordan, for Egypt, for Saudi Arabia to stop burying their heads in the sand over this, to stop being just about rhetoric, and now start being about action, which is what many of us have been calling for a very long time, then that's a positive.
So you think that something good could come out of this, even though you may think that what Donald Trump has said is batshit crazy and an infringement of international law. But the fact of the matter is, because he said it, the other countries might start thinking, OK, well, we do have to talk seriously about what a two-state solution could look like.
Well, I mean, I didn't think that. My friend did. But it did get me thinking. And, you know, who knows?
He's not really going to put boots on the ground. He's not, presumably, he's not going to get American soldiers to enforce what happens in Gaza. So I mean, I know this is generous, and I keep on saying, you know, this doesn't always align with what we see from Trump, but presumably, if the Saudis really don't like this idea, you know, if the Qataris really don't like this idea, the Jordanians really don't like this idea, and they do not want to house Palestinians in their own country, then don't they come to the table to sort it out?
And more than that, we've got countries that have the Abraham Accords with Israel set up. This was the part of the deal of the century that Trump himself negotiated. Those are still on the table. And what above our own country? You know, there was an opportunity today. Ed Davey asked Keir Starmer during PMQs, you know, will he now recognise the state of Palestine? Nothing. So if people are about a two-state
what Keir Starmer
solution,
said was, we will make sure that the people of Palestine get home to Gaza.
But what does that mean? You know, we've been asking for recognition for so long. That is a first step. They keep saying when it's most likely to achieve peace. Well, actually, that's gone. It's not about that anymore. It's now about how do we even ensure the existence of the country in the first place when you've got an American president basically saying that if he's not going to take over Gaza, then he'll probably just give it to Netanyahu, because that's what he's considering doing with the West Bank. So this is now the time to act. And my call to anyone who cares, including our own government, is if you care about a two-state solution, if you believe, for the sake of Israeli and Palestinian security, that you need two states, then if you are silent, you are complicit. Now is the time to do something, not just say you're going to do something mañana.
But do you think that there is anything in this that is a workable idea? I mean, look, we have seen the outflow of people from Syria. You know, millions of people have left Syria since the civil war, and they have resettled in Turkey, or a lot have gone to Germany or whatever else. That actually Gaza is going to be a hellhole. The two countries living side by side is almost impossible to imagine post October the 7th. There is a real, you know, the way Trump has phrased it about the Riviera of the Middle East and all the rest of it, yeah, kind of ridiculous. But is there a germ of an idea there?
I don't. But which people is it that gets the land, right? And so what you're conceding there is that, yeah, the Palestinians go, and I just don't think that's acceptable. It's certainly not acceptable to my friends and family who are there, who say we will die with the land. So how are you going to get them off it then? And what does that mean? And this is why it really, really matters. And so I'm also concerned for what this is going to do to the street. We've seen over the last 18 months, however long this has been going on now, we thought there was a pause with the ceasefire, but clearly not, how it's affected relations in our country and across the world. By the way, I really feel for those hostage families. Does this make it more or less likely that those people are going to come home now? I think it's less.
Do you? You think it will?
I do. And
it
you
will
saw how
upend
Hamas,
the ceasefire.
You saw how Hamas reacted to this over the last 24 hours. This is fueling their fire. And they said, no, we absolutely cannot stand for this. I really hope I'm wrong. I genuinely hope I'm wrong, because we need to see ceasefire. And I want those hostages home as much as I want every Palestinian life alive too. But we have to understand there are immediate term consequences to this, and longer term consequences, and all are linked together.
Layla, I suppose my question would be, what does the British government do? Because it seems at the moment the British government wants to just kind of give Donald Trump flattery wherever possible, in the hope that he doesn't really notice Britain that much, and we get away from any kind of trade tariffs or anything like that. And so you don't say anything to upset. But what should the British government say?
The British government, in our history, our proud history, helped to set up the international rules-based order. What he is doing is an anathema to that. It is the exact opposite of what we claim to hold as British values at home and abroad. And I would argue that when you are faced with someone like Donald Trump, a bully, he knows who he is. Let's show him who we are. When you've got such clear statements of breaking of international law, there has to be consequences. Where are the consequences for Trump? And we all assume that if you have consequences, that's going to lead to bad things. Actually, look, he likes the strong men of the world who completely disagree with him on most of what he believes in, but he likes them because at least they know who they are. I don't think he's going to like us very much if we're the cowering kid in the back of the class. Actually, we need to stand up tall. And this is an opportunity. So you know, in the very immediate term, we need to recognise the state of Palestine just as an intent. We need to be calling for an UN Security Council meeting today.
I mean, do you want somebody from the UK government to say that idea is preposterous and it's ethnic cleansing?
It needs, yes. I want to say, play back to him what he actually said, and then say and condemn it. It's the very least that we should be able to do at this point. And if they do less than that, they need to understand, in my view, that they are complicit to what is coming next.
Layla, can I ask you, you're speaking as a British politician, but obviously this is very personal for you, for all the reasons that we discussed last time around. You talked about your family, after a horrendous journey, managing to get out of Gaza, going to Bahrain. And when I asked you just now if they would return to Gaza, you said no. Once they're out, they won't. So I guess if I reframe that question, in a way, your family, those family members have already decided they're not going to go back to Gaza. I mean, isn't that how it happens?
Well, when we spoke about it, Winnie, who we were talking about, is in her late 70s and appreciates that in her lifetime it's not going to happen.
She will never go back.
We met and it was very emotional, and I was like, well, what's your plan? Are you here for just a few years? Are you planning to go back? She's like, it's not going to be.
So she's gone to Bahrain. Others have gone to
Australia.
I mean, isn't that what's going to happen now?
But I
Everyone
think
who leaves Gaza.
Saying, well, yes. So successive generations of Palestinians. This is our story. It kind of started with the Nakba, and this is very much what's out there. This is the war and beyond, but especially this is Nakba 2.0. It's happening again, and that's when we've had displacements at speed. But actually, it's been many decades of successive displacements. But what I will say is, even though I'm only half Palestinian, there is a part of me that will always feel Palestinian. And I'd love to go back. I would love to go back. And I'm a proud East Jerusalemite. And I believe that there is a part of my soul that also belongs there. And when I go there, I feel at home. So I think we want that two-state solution because we believe in that Palestinian identity. We believe in self-determination.
Means East Jerusalem, means the West Bank and Gaza.
Yes.
With the same government?
67 borders with a democratically elected Palestinian government in which extremism plays no part, which is not armed, but where Palestinians can determine their own destiny and aren't at the behest of an Israeli government that sees them as a security threat. And this is an achievable thing. This still is achievable. But my urge to everyone who cares, and I know there are many of your listeners who care, there are many people in this country who care, but a government who professes to care, is that if that is the future you want, we now have to fight for it.
Are you hearing that from anyone?
Not yet.
The Newsagents. This is a Global Player original podcast.